All right, well, you're going to have to give it up a little more than that for Johanna as she comes up. Big round of applause.
Okay. So it's 1971, and I'm 10 years old, and in the 5th grade, going to public school in Philadelphia, and I'll give you time to do the math. I'm near death. Not as close as our friend tonight, but getting there. So, for whatever reason, 1971 was the longest teacher strike in public school in Philadelphia, and I'm going to, and the substitutes wouldn't cross the picket lines, and our school was begging parents to come in and just to keep the school going. So all the Black Panther mothers came in, and they would start each class with, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." And I didn't exactly mind that, but it was just difficult for me to really give that a lot of sincere. And the thing is that I had been going to Greenfield Elementary in Philadelphia for a long time. It was a great school. It was one of the best schools. And then suddenly, in 1971, forced busing came on the scene. And all of the kids normally there were bussed out to ghetto schools, and ghetto kids were bussed in. It was quite a festival. Suddenly we went from great books, gifted reading programs to remedial, and all of this was happening very, very quickly. And the thing that I remember was sitting in a classroom, 40 kids looking around me, and the only other white person was the teacher. So again, I was raised liberal, capital L. My mother had so many pictures of Martin Luther King in our house growing up in these picture frames that at some point I thought he was a distant relative. My parents were interested in, marched for civil rights, totally not a prejudiced bone in my body. And I was fine with this change in school, except for suddenly I started to get beat up. I was getting beat up a lot. I'd be walking down the hall, and some kids would sneak up behind me and hit me over the head with an encyclopedia and laugh. And I would try to reason with them. I'm 10 years old. I'm, articulate, like, why are you doing this? And they would come back at me and say, don't you know, 'cause you're white. And I would try to puzzle out how I was going to be able to improve on this the next day, because the same thing and the same conversation would happen as I would come to school the next day white. Again. And, it wasn't totally bad. It was mixed. There were some nice kids, some bad kids, whatever. And I can just remember it was also 1971 was the worst time for my family. My family fell apart in 1971 because my mother, who was the glue that held our family together, suddenly got sick. And my mother, when I was growing up, she was 6 feet tall. She was a god to me. My mother was Catherine Zeta-Jones. She was just smart and funny, and she taught me poetry. I remember reading Robert Frost when I'm 5 years old. We dance around in a circle and suppose while the secret sits in the middle and knows, and she made me feel so smart, and I didn't know what the fuck that meant, but it didn't matter because she didn't talk down to me, and I loved her. And she got this weird kidney disease, and suddenly she's in the hospital, and the doctors say to us that her electrolytes aren't working. And I'm 10 years old, and I'm just picturing like light bulbs dangling inside her body, just blinking and blowing, and my mother's not well, and she comes home, and the doctors say the only thing that she can do is rest, and she's sleeping. So basically, from the time I'm 10 years old on, she's sleeping through my wonder years, and she's in the living room, and the blinds are shuttered, and now there wasn't Bring Your Children to Work Day back in 1971, but if there had been, it would just be me and my older sister, is 3 years older. We'd just come in the living room and circle the couch, to see what our mother did that day and wonder if we would be able to do that when we grew up. It was hard, it was tough, and the thing that made it worse was I would go to school with these ghetto black kids, and I would go to the cafeteria, and at lunchtime I didn't have anything to eat because there was no food in our refrigerator, because my mother pretty much had given up on cooking, except she did have strange cravings. She would get up in the middle of the night and she would make baked apples with diet cherry soda. And I would get up in the morning and there would be trays of baked apples dipped in diet cherry soda, which, really wouldn't make a good school lunch. And so my father would give me like 50 cents to buy the school lunch, and, there was a stigma, because if you bought school lunch, it was like the same as being caught eating out of the trash. So I would take the 50 cents and I would go to a vending machine and buy Reese's peanut butter cups, and I would have those for breakfast. And by the time I got to school and it got to be lunch, I'd be sitting around ghetto black kids who all had better lunches than me, and I had nothing. And I would just say, oh, I'm not hungry, watching them with their fantastic lunches that their parents had made them. Like, and they all had Michael Jackson lunch boxes and, bologna and potato chips. And they were like like soup to nuts taken care of. They would give me things. And it was weird, and I was starting to feel really pathetic and white trash poor. And I just decided one day I was going to steal money, which I did, from my father's sock drawer, and I just took a bunch of quarters. And that morning I decided that I was going to have a motherfucking lunch. And I went to the local deli on my way to school, and I was with my friend who lived down the block, and we were walking to school, and I ordered like the most fantabulous lunch that I could possibly have for $6 worth of quarters. It was like a turkey hero with lettuce and cheese and blood and extra pickles. And he puts it in the bag and I pay for it. And even though I pay for it, I feel like it's a gift. It's Christmas. And so my girlfriend and I were walking to the school, and we get to 19th Street. We're crossing Market Street. The light turns green, and I am flying in the air. I've been hit by a car. And I am up in the air for a long time. It's really true. It does feel like slow motion. And all I see is my bag of turkey, lettuce, onion, pickle, cheese with extra pickles on the side just floating that way. And then the next thing I know, I just black out, and I'm pulled to the side of the road, and I wake up, and I see that there are cops like looming over me, and they're like, thank God, just stay still, stay still. Your friend saved your life. She pulled you out of the road or you would have been killed. And I see she's holding my fucking bag, my turkey, lettuce, cheese, pickles, extra mayo. And I'm just thinking, I know I should be grateful, but I'm worried that she's going to eat this. And meanwhile, the guy's going to take me into the ambulance, and I really don't want to go because that sandwich was going to make my life right. I was going to have a motherfucking lunch. And I almost refused to go to the ambulance because I knew that as soon as I did, my friend was going to eat my turkey sandwich. Thank you.
A round of applause for Johanna. That was beautiful.